All right, guys, we are here at the Space Symposium in Colorado Springs, and we have some amazing interviews lined up for you already. We have Sierra Space ready to go, and you guys are going to be amazed with some of the new developments that have happened at that company and what they're planning for their upcoming space station, especially in the medical field. All of this combined with amazing scenes like this RL-10 engine here from Aerojet Rocketdyne, which is one of the longest lived and most established engines in the history of space flight. Let me tell you something, in these series of videos, you're going to get some content unlike anything you've seen before. Can't wait to bring it to you, so let's get going. First of all, let's give you an update on what's happening with Dream Chaser, at least the latest news that I got from the Space Symposium. And this information did not actually come from Sierra Space, but rather it came from their partners ULA, who will be launching Dream Chaser on Vulcan Centaur. This, by the way, is ULA's latest mascot, called Max Q, as opposed to their previous mascot, whose name was Rocky. In any event, Vulcan Centaur is scheduled to take Dream Chaser up to orbit in September of this year. So we're still looking at about 5 months before we're going to be ready to go, which is probably reflective of all of the different testing that NASA is going to have to do on this spacecraft before they're going to let it go to orbit and especially dock with the ISS. But wait a minute, what's this? Well, this shadowy craft is the human-rated Dream Chaser, which may be under construction at Sierra Space's Denver facilities right now. Okay, it's not technically Denver, it's Broomfield. Sorry about that, Broomfield. In any event, it's interesting to note that Sierra Space doesn't want to talk about the spacecraft that's currently under construction in Colorado. They want to focus on tenacity, which is understandable, but it may be because the next Dream Chaser that's coming out is radically different from the one that came before. A Dream Chaser that could perhaps carry as many as 7 crew as it was originally intended to carry when Sierra Space was competing for the NASA Commercial Crew Program. I think NASA is really kicking themselves over that decision, given the fact that Starliner still hasn't carried human beings to orbit, although that may change come May. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, this is our first look at the second Dream Chaser, which is called Reverence. It pretty much looks like the first one, so this may just be another cargo spacecraft. But once again, a human-rated spacecraft is definitely on the not-so-distant horizon for Sierra Space, and that's one of the reasons that they have a chief medical officer now, and we'll be getting to that interview in just a few moments. But before we get to that, have a look at this. Sierra Space just rolled out a whole new suite of life modules, which are essentially inflatable habitats for orbital space stations, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger. The first one, which will be deployed in the next couple of years, has a volume of 612 cubic meters and can fit inside a 5-meter fairing, so it can be deployed by a wide variety of rockets. But the next step up is 2,600 cubic meters in size and can fit inside a 7-meter fairing, so this could theoretically be deployed by the New Glenn rocket. However, the biggest version can only fit inside an 8-meter fairing, which means Starship or SLS. Definitely gonna go with Starship on that one. And this is over 5,500 cubic meters, as you just saw. We're talking something over 5 times the volume of Starship, capable of comfortably holding 70 astronauts on extended missions. Now, I know a lot of you guys really want to see a Starship space station, but this makes so much more sense. We're talking about an inflatable module over 5,500 cubic meters in size that could be deployed by a reusable rocket that could take up one inflatable habitat after another. If Starship were to deploy one of these a month, imagine how many people would suddenly be working in low Earth orbit. But this in itself presents a problem as well. If you have so many people working in space compared to the relatively few and extremely thoroughly vetted people who get to go these days, you're probably going to have a lot of unique problems, most significant of which are going to be medical emergencies with people who may not have the flawless medical history that most astronauts have these days. So what do you do about that? Well, I got a chance to interview Sierra Space's new chief medical officer. I can't imagine a better person they could have recruited. Not only is he a doctor, he's been to space several times on several different spacecraft and has embarked on several spacewalks as well. Let's go ahead and plunge right into this interview, unlike any interview I've carried out before. Good morning, folks. Our most exciting interview, as always, here at any of these conventions is our Moments with Sierra Space. So excited to bring you a new guest today. Sir, would you be so kind, Doctor, as to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Yeah, Dr. Tom Marshburn. I was an engineer and then became a ER doc, joined NASA as a flight surgeon. NASA flight surgeon about 30 years ago, then became an astronaut in 2004. After an 18 career there, I finished up 3 flights, 5 spacewalks, and said I want to work for Sierra Space.
5 spacewalks.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to immediately jump to a topic I wasn't planning on, but you have that experience. We have a private spacewalk coming up soon.
Right.
What sort of pitfalls do you anticipate, or what worries you a little bit about the fact that somebody, from the private sector is going to try to do this on Crew Dragon?
Yeah, I think that the biggest worry we'd have is that people would not worry and take it lightly. But I don't think that's happened. I think they're looking very seriously at it. It's something you fully understand once you open the hatch and pull yourself out of your vehicle and see the universe and space for the first time, and of course the Earth below you. This is a really serious industrial operation here, and you want to keep yourself alive. And only that suit's keeping you alive. And so, huge kudos for those who did this for the first time. Alexei Leonov and Ed White. What heroes, because we're standing on their shoulders. And so I think they're doing a great job keeping people safe. We hope it all works out fine. It's a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's move on to your specific field of expertise in the medical field. What sort of emergencies have occurred or medical issues have arisen in space in the past, things that people like you have had to deal with?
So as a flight doc, we wanted to really understand what's happened throughout the whole Russian program. They've had multiple satellites as well as the Mir and we flew there. So we've learned a lot from the Russians as well as our own experience now, like 23 years on our International Space Station. So a whole array of things have occurred. We're really worried about cardiovascular events, and we're better at screening people before they go up. But there wasn't a arrhythmia that brought a crew back early from the Mir Space Station. There was somebody twice now that's come close to having a heart attack before we were good at screening people. Some of that's been published. You could look it up. And when they came back, they actually did have a heart attack, so it's a bit of a close call. Other things that have happened, people get headaches, not to the point to where it actually brings them home, although there was one emergency return from the Salyut space station, one of theirs. We think it was headaches, maybe an environmental problem, too much CO2, hard to tell. Dental problems for a while were an issue. So when astronauts train, there's some basic dental procedures you got to do. I mean, nothing worse than a toothache. You don't want to be living with that for 6 months or something. We just keep on going down the body. Some GI issues every now and then. As you can imagine, in 0G, you get a little esophageal reflux. You got a little heartburn.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right.
That alone could be problematic. I think.
from a physiology standpoint, super interesting. You don't burp in space, that kind of thing. So, but anyway, interesting stuff going on. So just one of the big things that can happen if you get a skin infection, that almost brought a crew home. Eye injuries in space is really hard on the eyes and the hands because no matter how clean your hair is, there's still little particulates that hit you in the eye. Anything, even in an operating room, if you took that dust and let it float, then your eyes are the most sensitive detectors of that stuff. It smacks you in the eye. It almost brought somebody home for an eye injury. Hands as well. We use our hands like our feet. They're our main means of propulsion. We brachiate,
right.
Moving around the space station. Easy to catch a finger, break a finger. There's been a dislocated finger in space. That was at Skylab, and that was immediately fixed right away because they had some training for that sort of thing. So any number of things. There's been a good number of close calls that, fortunately, because the expertise on the ground, the medical kit we had, took care of it. It's not very often. I think it's a testament to the entire International Space Station program. We never brought anybody back from that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Or a medical emergency. And there's things we've had to take care of.
So tell me, what do you foresee being challenges in the future? Because we're going to start getting more everyday civilians. You have these massive inflatable modules. I mean, up to 5,000 cubic meters. You can put a lot of people in that. So what sort of pitfalls unique to like civilian spaceflight do you anticipate are going to come up, which professional astronauts may not have had happen as often?
Right. I think it helps a lot when we bring the knowledge of NASA's human spaceflight program. That's one of the reasons why I'm with the company, and there's others that are very aware of that. So in the design of our vehicles, we're thinking about that. The design of our medical kits, what are the most common things that are going to happen that we can take care of? And then last, of course, is you want to have a good design. You want to have your kit, but you also train if we can take care of those things. But to your point, our vehicles, our destination, our life module is huge, which is beautiful and wonderful.
Yeah.
So it'd be fantastic to go floating through there. And so with some tools and some training, we think we can avoid hit, smacks, that sort of thing, because that can happen too. I've sewed up a couple of lacerations in space.
Have you?
Usually in the hatchways, people get excited, get some speed, it's wonderful to fly around, and there's some big hard immovable metal objects up there, and it's easy to hit them. So we obviously want to avoid that, but we think that kind of thing we can take care of. Really, to your point, we want to open the aperture for anyone that wants to fly in space to be able to.
Right.
So that means people that haven't, they might have medical issues that they bring with them to space, and we're going to be able to, our goal is to look at them very closely, assess the risk, bring on board what we need to, so we take care of any medical issues, so that we can bring people up, particularly diabetes, with prior heart condition, that sort of thing. And then one of the great things about this company is our Dream Chaser as a return. It's a very easy 1.5G return, landing on a runway anywhere you need to that the 737 can land.
Right.
It's going to land.
Yeah.
So if you had to get somebody right back to a hospital,
yeah, it's amazing.
and I've ridden on 3 spacecraft, the shuttle, the Soyuz, and the Crew Dragon with SpaceX, and the shuttle is very smooth landing. The other 2 are not. They're a lot of fun. Highly recommend them for a wonderful adventure ride, but maybe not bring a patient.
What are the G-forces on Dragon versus the shuttle? 1.5 versus about how much do you experience on Dragon?
Pull up, the thing is not necessarily that entry through, when you turn into a meteor and you're getting really slowing down from Mach 25 to
Right.
Mach 4. And so that is fairly sustainable, but yeah, the shuttle is less. It's a 2+ Gs, maybe up to 4 for a short period of time on the shuttle. The big thing is and this is similar for the other, the big thing is the opening shot of the chute on Soyuz and the Dragon. That's a lot of fun.
Bam,
if you're
yeah.
into that sort of thing.
Right.
Usually astronauts are. A great thing to tell your friends about. But on the shuttle, I didn't even know we'd landed.
Wow.
You just don't even feel the bump.
That's
for
amazing.
a good landing. And so it's a huge difference.
So you've sutured wounds in space. So tell me, if we're talking about something more severe, let's say, God forbid, we do have a real serious laceration going from here to Mars.
Yeah.
In microgravity, what happens? How do you fix that?
It's not standard. You don't put out your operating field with your sterile drape because that's just going to float up. Everything's going to float. It turns out, though, it'd be very doable. And so I think the people going to Mars are going to not only have to be better trained for that, because we'll train a test pilot, a geologist, a doctor, everybody the same, to work with a medical kit, largely first aid, to get their hands on, they get exposure, but not real good expertise on this. But we, at Sierra Space, and I'm sure NASA going to Mars, we'll have people that have a lot more training and ability to train as they go. So if they haven't seen a patient for 6 months and something happens, they still have that skill set. So ultimately, absolutely, you can close a balloon with suture or staples. There's various technologies out there for wound closure. You don't necessarily need sterile water. It'd be nice to have to irrigate. We've got to supply sterile water to prevent an infection. Easy to see the doctor. You're going to commute to see your doctor, and the doctor's right there. So you have very close monitoring. You got antibiotics if you need them.
Right.
It'll be a real challenge if we cut a tendon or get a fracture, like a quick fracture with a laceration.
Right.
Those would be some big issues. But again, they're not insurmountable, depending on what we put in the medical care.
So one last question, because I know your time is limited today. Once again, thank you so much for that time. Are there any specific situations that kind of keep you awake at night? Or when you were in space as a flight surgeon, you're like, oh, I really hope this doesn't happen, you know? Any of this, or did you just feel confident enough to handle anything?
We ended up writing this up and publishing a paper on it, and that is the abdominal pain in space. It's either nothing, you just got to go to the bathroom, or it's something serious,
right?
Like appendicitis.
Right.
That's a tough one. We think we have good techniques for dealing with that, and so probably we will not be training people to take out appendix. We may very well, this isn't completely thought out yet, employ what's called interventional radiology techniques. So stick a needle into an abscess, drain it, give them a lot of antibiotics. So with an ultrasound, that's our imaging choice in space, using ultrasound to guide whatever you can do with needles to take care of these kind of things. And then really good health care before they launch. So we don't launch somebody with a medical problem on a mission like Mars or something like that. So everybody's thinking about all that stuff.
Yeah.
The real challenge is going to Mars from a human health standpoint would be the radiation and the psych issues. You can imagine, not only are you just with your crewmates, but you can't even have a conversation, real-time conversation with somebody because light speed is your limit. It might be a question-answer period of 45 minutes in between the question and the response. Not to mention the view out the window might be the blackness of space for most of the time because the Earth is just a dot, Mars is a red dot. So those are some really interesting hurdles we got to figure out.
Okay, I lied. This is a real quick question, however. Just occurred to me, though. Do you think it's Sierra Space's objective, I'm sure this is pretty obvious, to have a flight surgeon on every one of these stations? You know, regardless of size, do you want medical support no matter what?
Right. So we will address whatever is the right thing to do. And so if we got somebody with a very specific need, yes, we can fly a flight surgeon that is trained up to take care of that problem if it happens. And that would enable that individual to fly. For your standard astronaut corps, we're going to have our own astronaut corps, our own astronauts with medical certification, medical clearance. We intend to train each one of them to a little higher level, about a GMT level, so they are proficient and can take care of most everything that happens to your standard space flight standard astronaut.
Doctor, can you tell us real quick about your specific role at Sierra Space? I mean, what is a chief medical officer going to do for Sierra Space right now and in the future?
Yeah, sure. Chief medical officer for a spaceflight company is the way I see it, and I think matches the vision of the company, is to have a medical operations group. So a group that takes care of all the needs, both from a purely medical standpoint, so we'd have a flight surgeon doctor to take care of things, and to monitor people from mission control, if not actually flying the mission. But also their behavioral health and performance, so the performance is maximized. So that's psychiatrists, psychologists that are on board, trainers, physical trainers. It's so important to make sure you're physically fit and doing the right exercise to preserve muscle when they fly in space. But that team would be a little bit separate from an astronaut corps. So our human spaceflight center would have an astronaut corps with a chief astronaut running that, much like JSC has. It's very important to have. They're in close ties with each other. But very importantly is the human system integration. You're never just flying a person in space. You're flying a person with a life support system and everything to keep that person alive and being productive.
Yeah, sounds like human spaceflight is a big part of what Sierra Space is going to be doing here real soon. So very exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
Fantastic, Doctor.
Sure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great talking to you. Thank you.
All right, folks. Quite an amazing interview there. A lot of new stuff developing, and we're getting the bleeding edge of it here at the Space Symposium. Got more to bring you, so really exciting stuff still coming. Stay tuned for the next episode. In the meantime, stay angry about space.